Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is another one of the videos that's going into the stockpile. So I have no idea when it'll get posted. I'm doing these, I've got a fair bit of work to do, and I wasn't going to film a lot of it, and then I thought, well hang on, if I film it I can always put that video to one side and bring it out when perhaps I can't make a video because I'm not around or whatever. So anyway, I've come well prepared. Alright, yeah, we can do this one. Now this one is the, it's actually a Dendrobium primulinum variety Laos. It's the one that has the gold in it. Now this is in a position where we have a new growth there that's showing quite well, but hidden round here are another couple. So this is coming into growth, but the moss on it is dead as a doornail. It's got no sensible root system, and I think it will do better in a pot with those growths pushing out roots into media that can stay moist. All of these mounts that go into pots with moist media are to grow them on. They are going to become a little difficult to handle come the winter rest, but I'll worry about that when I've regenerated a root system and got a happily growing plant. And if necessary for the first winter, they won't get rested. They'll just get left to grow if I can keep them going and just get a bigger, stronger plant. We'll worry about getting them to bloom with the winter rest and all that stuff another time. So yeah, this is another one that the moss that's on there has just turned into a hard mass. So it's going to come off okay, I think. Yeah. It's just sort of matted. I doubt there's going to be any decent roots here. These are what I call old tired roots. They probably still function in as much as they allow some hydration into the plant, but not much. You know, they're just not working properly. But nonetheless, there's quite a few of them, and I think the easiest thing to do is to just trim them, and then with some hydration they might come back to life, and if they do they'll branch. It's a branching root system anyway, so I'm just trimming it. So yeah, effectively we've got a couple of new growths forming, and we'll see if they progress. They may or may not progress. We shall see. But at least it's coming back into growth. So that's one. Now this one, I've forgotten my wire cutters, and I'm certainly not going to use my bonsai scissors to cut wire. I'll just break off for a second. Right, so this one is in a very similar position. It's got quite a lot of new growths coming, all of which have got little root stubs, but they're not progressing. And you know, there are some signs of life, but it's not growing. It's not growing as it should. So again, I'm going to put this in a pot and let those roots get down into you know, some moist media and start growing properly, and with any luck it'll rejuvenate the plant. So, you know, whereas that previous one, that had been on there some time, but nonetheless the moss had set. This one hasn't, and I was going to say there's no attachment whatsoever on this one. This hasn't been on the mount long, but it hasn't grown. The moss was put on there to keep the roots moist, and you know, it just hasn't done it basically. So we need to get this in some moisture, same as the other one. So we will knock up a media that's got some moss in it and make sure there's a good deal of moss See, down in here, there's even a sign of a new root down in amongst the roots, not just coming from the base of the plant. But yeah, so I'll go and find myself 2 relatively small pots and get some media sorted out, and we'll get these 2 potted up. I don't think they're going to fail. I think they will progress, but not anywhere near at the rate I would like. And I think doing nothing and leaving them on the mounts would have probably spelt their doom. So I don't waste long pieces of wire like that. That will get used for something. Right, I'll be back. Right, got a couple of smallish pots. This one's got some strange markings on it. I think it must have had some tape on it or something at some point, but it doesn't matter, it's on the outside. A fair bit of medium bark in the bottom for crocking, bearing in mind if these plants do go through the winter, I don't want them soaking wet. And where do pots stay wettest? At the bottom. So if they've got much larger bark with a lot of air, then that'll stop that happening. Now add in some perlite. I'm getting low on this, but I do have another tub, so I won't run out. It'll be a long time before I get down the other tub, because obviously a lot of the stuff that this has been used for won't need repotting for some time. So, you know, I won't even start on the other one for a while. There's still some in here anyway, I'm not out. We've still got the large particles as well, we haven't got down to the dust yet. So that's that. And then I've mixed up some moss, which I will break up. I want this in, I don't want this in the great big long strands, I want this in smaller pieces this time. So just tear it. If you do it a little bit at a time, then there's not many long pieces will escape you. You do it just literally as a bit pokes out between your fingers, tear it, and then no long bits manage to get through, so you end up with some reasonably small pieces, if that's what you want. I mean, you know, the long strands do have their use, but not normally in a pot. They tend to be used for things that are only going to have moss and have their roots wrapped round with the long strands. That's a different type of thing altogether. Oh, breezy out there today. I must admit, when I went out to water everything, as I have to do every day, it was quite chilly out there this morning. You know, considering it's May, and we're going to be up 23, 24 degrees today with continuous sunshine. It would be ever so nice for the newly planted plants in the garden if it clouded over about 2 o'clock, which is as that sun comes up over the roof and gets on that part of the garden. Even if it was just for part of the day. No, not enough moss, a bit more. Actually, I'm going to leave the rest of the moss to make sure I've got heavy on the moss around the top of the plant. So that will do. Because these are going to go in quite deep. I want what few roots there are to be constantly hydrated now. Well, that's half the problem with a mount. You know, they are spending an amount of time dry, which is the purpose of a mount, which is fine for established plants, but not very good for ones that are just starting to put roots out. They need to stay hydrated. So I've got my media in there. I'm just going to sit that on the top. Now, unfortunately, there are 2 really old shriveled canes stopping that getting down in the pot, so I'm just going to take them off. Purely cosmetic. Just so that the plant goes down in the pot. But before I do that, I'm just going to put a bit of media up in that hollow. Otherwise it will be hollow because I won't be able to get media down there afterwards. And then we'll just put some media down the back of the plant. This plant's not going to get pressed down in as such. It's going to be quite loose. But an amount of media with moss in is going near the top of the pot, and that will hold the moisture around the base of the plant where all these new growths are, and hopefully keep it permanently moist, because that's the difference between what you can do in a pot and what you can do in a mount, depending on how often you're prepared to spray or water said mounts. Now if you're prepared to do that 2 or 3 times a day, you can keep them moist, but if you're not, then they don't stay moist, they dry out, which is, as I said, with an established plant, part of the game with a mount. Right, so that's that one, and that was the Harveyanum, wasn't it? Yes, Harveyanum. So we will see what that does. Give it a good water now, because obviously I squeezed most of the water out of that moss, so we've got to rehydrate that now that the plant's settled in there. And now we're going to do the same sort of thing with this one. Not such a big root system this time to get to sink in there. But again, picking on media off my pile that's got moss in it, which we're now getting a bit short of, so we will break some more up. As I said, the bit that goes round the roots I want heavy on the moss so that they stay moist. And that is for resting type Dendrobiums going into the growing season, not going into the resting season. We'll worry about that, that's at the end of the year. This is halfway through the year, and what's going on with these plants should have happened 2 months ago. It's only just happening now. So they've got some catching up to do, and they can do that by staying hydrated, permanently staying hydrated, no drying out at all. Just keep them moist. And we'll see what it does, and hopefully some of these older tired roots will now start working better, and the new growths will push down new roots into moist media relatively quickly. That's the theory, what I have. So good watering now. I'm actually very short on water at the moment. I need to get the RO unit out. But I need to get the RO unit out on a day where I water the garden early so that I can get the RO unit on early in the day, and that wasn't today. I've other things to do. Yeah, so there we go. 2 hopefully rescued in time Dendrobiums that I like a lot. I don't really want to lose them. I've lost one Harveyanum already. This is a replacement. And the Primulinum variety Laos, that's the only one I've ever come across for sale. But that was at Malvern many years ago. That's this one, sorry. It's never grown that well. I was in total disbelief that it was even the real thing, because the canes are so short. But other people have said they have seen short cane versions of that, but they've also seen ones with much longer canes. So we will have to wait and see. But I think if this plant was being grown and was happy, I think the canes might start getting a bit longer. And I think it's spent too much of its life so far in the growing season not hydrated enough because it was on a mount. Now naturally it would grow on a tree. It is an epiphyte. But during the growing season it would get a lot of rain and a lot of humidity. And maybe I was slacking a bit on that front. We'll see how they do. This one's got many new growths coming. I think this one will pick up quite quickly. This one may well be slow to grow. We shall see. Anyway, a video to put on the shelf for a time when I haven't got anything else being filmed. There we go, 2 more mounts sorted. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.